While Germany and Denmark forge ahead with renewables, countries like Russia, South Korea and China are embracing nuclear energy. The energy discussion in South Africa is equally divergent. According to the Integrated Resource Plan of 2010, South Africa needs about 9,600 megawatts of new nuclear capacity. This was based on the assumption of an annual GDP growth rate of 3% for the next 20 years, which hasn't exactly happened. We also need to put a lid on our greenhouse gas emissions. So we have three options. 1. Coal and more coal. Option 2. Nuclear energy. And a third.
The third option, big option for South Africa for new generation capacity, is a combination of wind and solar PV combined with gas. So the wind and solar certainly plays a big part in reducing the CO2 emissions, but it has the disadvantage of its variability. But in combination with gas, which is relatively clean, it still does emit CO2 emissions, but it is relatively clean. Gas power can be used to fill the gaps when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow. And in combination, the average price of electricity in the blend of wind and solar PV and gas comes in at less than R1 a kilowatt hour and dropping.
Much lower than the projected R1.30 per kilowatt hour for nuclear energy. This would provide a flexible grid that can meet both baseload industry requirements and adapt to lower household demand. But nuclear proponents say it's a matter of perspective. While rivalry between companies has resulted in competitive pricing, it does not mean the technology is cheaper in real terms.
Well, you've found over some years now, people have been saying, why don't we use wind and solar? But they're intermittent. So now they're saying, why don't we use wind and solar and gas? What they're not telling you is that gas is by far the biggest percentage. It's gas with a little bit of wind and solar. They also don't always tell you the gas is imported. We don't have it here. How are we going to bring massive gas pipelines all over the country? Are we bringing big shipments of gas in? One's got to be realistic at looking at this. We cannot just listen to fairy stories.
Critics of the nuclear program say that South Africa would be tying itself down to a single vendor and one technology over a very long time. But the South African Nuclear Energy Corporation believes South Africa doesn't have much of a choice.
Right now, South Africa's cheapest electricity is Koeberg Nuclear Power Station nuclear electricity.
Whichever side of the debate you're on, the country's energy supply industry needs reform. Lorhren-Rose, Johannesburg.